Hello and welcome to another episode of the BashTalk podcast. Today I have three special guests from our local community, and the main topic and theme of the talk today is around Paak FC, which is a local football team, particularly of ethnic lineage. And I just want to start off just by asking each one of my guests today, starting to my right, just to introduce themselves. And maybe give it just a short few words about themselves, please. So, Bismillah.
No problem, thank you. My name is Mashook Hussain, better known around as Mash. I think it seems to be like a product name. And I'm a proud Nelsoner, proud Pakistani, and been a part of Paak United for as long as I can remember, to be honest.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sajjad Bhatt, also proud Nelsoner. My association with Paak United goes back from the very, very early days. Mash mentions known as Mash, I'm known as Saj, and people will probably know our family business, 3B Systems Limited. Bit of background to my career life, apart from the association with Paak United. I was initially a lecturer at Nelson Cone College and then at Lancaster. But my roots have always been in Nelson.
Muhammad Iqbal. I'm one of those people who came early in 1960s and went to school and didn't know a word of English. Then from there, I started to work in the textile industry. From there, opportunity came in 1982 when I was made redundant. Then I went to college to study again. And then from there, things opened and I was employed by Lancashire County Council and went to university for 2 years to do my youth and community work. And that was mainly involved in understanding how the society works and how you empower people. Okay. From there, I worked for Lancashire County Council, played football and cricket parallel. So I was always playing something, winter or summer. Okay. So Alhamdulillah, that's our brief introduction.
Okay. So just a little bit of background. When I was setting up the podcast, one of the first themes and group of people I wanted to interview was it was around the Paak FC. Because maybe 2-3 years ago, might have even been longer because time flies, but I remember there was in Silverman Hall, there was like a kind of a anniversary event, and there's a brother called Zahir from Nelson, Zahir Abbas, I think his second name is, and he invited me, just said this, just here's the ticket, and I think it was like a few quid for a ticket, just come down. And I wasn't familiar with Paak FC at all. All I remember, if I'm being completely honest, is you'd see like Asian Image sometimes, there'd be a few cuttings and clips at the back in the sports section, and I wasn't that too familiar. And then I heard Uncle Saj talking about some aspects of being in it, because you gave like a little talk there, didn't you? Mm-hmm. And I think a few others gave talks, and I thought, this is actually, to me, this is a success story, and it's something that I think it needs highlighting. But I also want to give a special shout out to the unseen hand who put it all together for us, Mr. Shakur Ghafoor. I'm grateful that he got you all together. So, just to actually, sorry, I just want one more thing. So, some of the viewers and listeners who aren't from the Asian community, every single one of my guests today, I'm going to be referring to them as uncle. They're not actually my uncles, but it's a term of respect and endearment. Generally, once you get over 70, then you get that title. Yeah. And so let's just start us off then. So without going straight into the Paak FC, I just want to get an understanding and the context of the time when Paak FC as a club actually got started. So what was society like at that time in terms of people who are going to listening to this think in terms of objects? So like we make fun of kids now because I'm in my 30s. I say you don't even know what a Walkman is. So can you give me in context around the time that Paak FC got set up? Like what was the historical context then?
I'll refer it to Paak Iqbal because he's the most senior of us and he was right at the beginning of Paak United. But before I do, when I was approached to do this, I thought of two very dear people who have had a profound effect on the history of Paak United. And they were both also mad Liverpool fans. And throughout this season, I've been thinking of them so much. Sadly, both of them are no longer with us. One is Mohammad Arif Veshti, who recently passed only a month or two ago. And he was a mad Liverpool fan, and he had so much love and so much input into the Paak story, you know. And in fact, he's the only person who could drag me. He took me to Anfield once, and I'm a Man United fan. So only my beloved Arif, who I love so much, and he was one of the greatest people I've ever met. And the other gentleman was, and we could do a full program on each of these people actually.
Yeah.
The other gentleman was David Blizzard, OBE, who again, I mean, one of the most amazing people I've met in my life. And he again had such a profound input into the Paak United story, you know, getting us on TV, radio, Belgium tournament. These things we'll touch on, no doubt. But I wanted to remember those people because we love them so much. They love Liverpool so much, and it's only right that this year we should remember them, and may Allah Paak bless them both with Jannah.
Ameen.
I can remember the time when we wanted to play football. The parents at that time mainly there was no mothers here.
Right.
It was fathers brought the children along, and I was one of those with the family. So I had a Harvard Street Mosque. There was an original mosque there, Harvard Street. Opposite Muhammadi Mosque, there was a flats, and behind the flats now there was a Harvard Street, and that's where the terraced house was first.
Mosque.
And Mori people from Mori background, and they lived around there. And when we wanted to play football, and the server was one of those young men who played for Paak United, a very successful centre forward, and parents wouldn't let him come out because I was going to the mosque. So he said, well, my dad and my uncle don't want me to play football because even though they were school, he said, you'll get injured. We're here to work.
Yeah.
We were here to work. So I used to go to their houses because I used to collect funds for the mosque monthly. That was one other thing which I've got involved in. So I used to go, there was not many houses like they are now. So I used to go to parents' house and say, look, let them play football. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So that's how they said, okay, if you say, oh, Goriana khela latta pananiyan ne, what's the point of playing? Why you want to play? Yeah. So I used to do that. Because I was older out of them, all of these people here, I got involved in football because at school I didn't know English. When I came in 64, the Miss Avat, there's a teacher, Mr. Wood, the PE teacher.
PE teacher.
I was
cricket coach as well.
So he put me in a football team after a month and a half in school because I didn't know a word of English.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Payton he was a good footballer
very
here.
Famous.
He was in the same class here in the school as I was.
Right.
So they said he's no good. Iqbal is no good. So me and I had a bit of argument on the playing field. But Mr. Wood put me in. Yeah. So that's how I started. But the bridge between, I was one of the oldest and parents said, don't play football. So this was my link because I was attached to the mosque. So you asked me at that time, there were cinemas. The people used to go to cinemas. And I used to go to cinema. But when I started football, I didn't want to go Sunday film. The highlight of the week was that Sunday, everybody used to go to film. There were cinemas, Duke Bar, Nelson, another one, Cacklington, everywhere. So look for newspapers and say where the films are at weekend. So everybody was working.
Just to interrupt, to clarify, cinemas for showing Pakistani Indian films. Mainly Pakistani films in those days.
Pakistani Indian films. That's the word. So that's the background at that time. And my involvement was with the football was that because I was energetic. So that's how I got involved, and then I got involved into cricket. But between the parents and the young people, I was always been that link.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you look at it like today, so you were in a time where there was no mobile phones.
Yeah.
You had to rely on that person being there. So a group of children
Yeah.
that you know are going to be there,
Yeah.
and you can go and enjoy a game of football. Now nowadays you have like WhatsApp groups, people have got
Yeah.
cars,
Yeah.
and even up until 5 minutes for the game, you're still like fighting to get an extra player just to fill a
Still
slot.
late, yeah.
But you asked the question, and it's very important to put into context why mainly Pakistani football team came about.
Yes.
I think we need to emphasize that about Paak United. The uniqueness of it was that over 50 years, how did a Pakistani football team come about? And I think we have to point to the social conditions of the time. And, there was open racism. We were sworn at, you black so-and-sos, get back, F off to where you came from. We were spat at, we were chased down the streets. So
Every summer.
Man. One of my earliest memories of school just down the road, Homefield School we went to, is the first time we saw snow. And it was lots of snow. And local, we used to walk home for lunchtimes and so forth. And there was so much snow. And I remember going back to school after lunchtime, and all the English kids had gathered at the gates, and we'd never seen these missiles, snowballs, and they were pelting us with snowballs. And obviously we didn't have experience of making snowballs at the time. Honestly, I remember we couldn't go back to school that afternoon. We had to go back home.
Wow.
And when we were playing football, or trying to, in the yard, etc., there were no more than, I think, 15 of us in the whole school, Asian kids. And we used to be down at the bottom corner playing by ourselves because the English kids won't let us play. So you can see how in our minds all the time it's forming that we're different.
Yeah.
We're not welcome kind of thing. There was a long way forward for us to go and so forth. So from those early times, after when I left school, the first person I remember playing football at Walden Park just in the summer, and the first person who mentioned to me about Paak United was the brother of the late Muhammad Arif, older brother, Muhammad Khalid Saab that I mentioned. And he, in a way, actually, he should be here because he's one of the great pioneers of Paak United. And he's not too good, but Allah Pak grant him health, inshallah. And again, a future program perhaps we'll involve in. And he said, come and join, and I didn't know Paak United at all. And he told me about it, and then I joined, and then I'll elaborate on that further. But I think
Were they called Black Diamonds at that time, or were they still called Paak
They
United?
were actually, when I first approached them, the Paak United were called Black Diamonds. And it was like an Arsenal top, I remember, with the diamond logo on the left-hand side. That's my earliest memory, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell you what. How about because what I ended up doing, I've ended up like moving backwards and forwards. So how about we just take a step back and say, right, when did Paak FC start? What was the starting point? So at that time, it may have been maybe called something else. But what was the kind of the inception and starting point for it?
The Paak United name came about, so that's why we played football before, without the name, because once I started playing for the school, because it was just something I didn't know English, I didn't communicate with people, but through the sport we did. Then Iftikhar is a Briarfield, another person is my age. We started saying, look, come and play football.
Okay.
And we started playing, and these people, Khalid and the server, which you talked about,
Yeah.
they're a lot younger than us.
Yeah.
So what they were used to go to Walden School.
That's right.
So they started as a group playing there. The people who were in Whitefield School at that time, when I was 1964, I was in that school. The people soon left and started work.
And if I can just in those days, you left school at 15.
Yeah, 15. So, and you get to work. So you went to work. So that's where I did. So because of that situation, when we were playing football, the older guys, that's how I introduced. These young people was there. They imagine they were about 10 years or 70 years age different at that time. It's a big difference.
Massive difference.
It's a massive difference. So I was one of those guys who was that kind of had playing football with older guys, and these guys started playing, then I became interested and said, look, okay, they go to school regular, they're better at football and they're energetic and etc. So they said, we want to play, but they didn't know how to go about. So Preston, for example, I remember we had a game arranged, Preston. So I got Bukhari Shah and his brother. So I asked, because I was the elder, I said to them, we need to go to Preston to play football. So they said, I said, will you drop us off?
The driving instructors.
Driving instructor. So the people, I got 3 or 4 people, they dropped us off. So Afra and the Cassis, they were there. We used to come before this your team. We used to come there, play there, and have with our shorts and change there and have a shower outside in the backyard. So that's how we were before the Paak United name got. But when that name came, Alan was a manager as well. And I think his name was Alan.
Nelson Cohen.
No. The first manager before Khalid got. Khalid was that, but there was Alan, his wife as well. The tall lady, I don't know if you remember.
This is before my time.
Yeah, so they used to train us. So at that time, it wasn't the Paak United. We were that, but then the Paak United name came after that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So when you were playing games initially, you started off like just a local team, and you had to build, and you had to get to a stage where you were playing at the team. So how was it like in terms of, did you have to join an entry-level league or something like that? How did it work?
This is where Brother Muhammad Khalid Saab, who's not here with us, according to what he's told me, is that when they eventually once decided that they wanted to enter a league, before they were playing just either in the streets or parks or having friendly matches, you just organize between, in traditional say, that kind of thing. Then they thought, we want to go a bit further. We want to join the league. And Bhai Khalid tells me, he says, the first time I went in, it was a smoke-filled room full of obviously all English guys, the chairman, the secretary and so forth. And he said why do you Pakistanis want to join football league? We didn't know you played
because all the
football.
meetings are all in workingmen clubs.
The workingmen's clubs, He said, we thought you lot only played cricket. We didn't know you could play football. So that was kind of the mentality, if you like.
Yeah.
And of course, no doubt they would have struggled and they would have, misunderstandings. They might not have been aware. This is the first generation of Paak United, the rules. It was very, very difficult for them. And sort of, they survived the first couple of seasons. Maybe it's when I joined. I was
Alan was the guy who was, the way the big stories. Lidl used to be now Home Bargain. Behind there was an ambulance place,
and then there's a workingman.
They used to be the meetings.
Meetings, yes.
So Alan and his wife was a lovely lady. Alhamdulillah, Allah give her iman. But they both really put a lot of energy into it. And that's how they took us and introduced us to the people like that. But Khalid, he describes it many times. This is how it was. But because the sport was, for me, was a ground where, racism was, like Sai said, the racism was there. For example, I was working in the mill. Because I was the older guy. And they said, tacklers, for example, if you can't be a tackler, a Pakistani person can't be a tackler. You can be a textile weaver, but you can't be. So whatever the reason was, I challenged that. And I said, no, this is wrong.
Yeah, because tacklers just get paid more. And it was an easier job.
This is a personal trait. Yeah. He's always been an awkward guy.
What it is that the solicitors at Car Road, because Nelson is a small town, so because I was involved in this, and I said to the people, this is wrong. The solicitors and the people with the authority, they said this is wrong. Then the World in Action came.
What is that?
The program World in Action.
Yeah.
They filmed us.
Right.
They filmed us playing cricket and challenging the racism in there. The textile, everybody has to be a union member when you start to work them days. So I was a union member. So I said, this is wrong. Why can't we be tacklers? So that's how it started. The racism was there, and there was skinheads, and there were fights, and etc. Teddy boys, and the town centre was different kind of kettle of fish.
So we've got the context now. So it was a very, very difficult time, and especially for someone like a group of Pakistani young men to go into a working man's club and say, right, this is where you're having your discussions. We want to set up our own team. We want to get to a stage where, you know, we're a bit more professional about it, join a league, try and progress. So in terms of the team itself, so it looks like it went through an early stage with Uncle Iqbal, and then Uncle Saj, it seems like around the time that you've kind of come into it, that it's started to take shape a little bit more.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a bit more about those formative years?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was really young. I was 16 or 17, and then
the captain as well.
Very quickly, I managed to establish myself in the team. And at 18, I was still the youngest player. Now I look back at it, I didn't realize at the time, but I was the youngest player in the team, and they thought it worthy to make me the captain. Sure. And I mean, it's amazing to that generation how much respect they showed me, because a lot of them had left school at 15. They were working. Many of them were married and with children and so forth. Yet, you know, there I was as their captain. But, you know, what I admired about these guys, as I said, they were working in factories, some of them night shifts, leaving, and it was hard work, you know, leaving work at 6 a.m. and then on a Saturday afternoon, or waking up at maybe 12 o'clock to get ready to play a match in the afternoon. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So the commitment they had. And I think a lot of it did come from the fact that what I described earlier, that we were made to feel like outsiders. You know, we couldn't, what Brother Iqbal said, you can't be a tackler, which is, by the way, a position in the textile industry, something senior. You know, you only can stay at that level. And it was the same mentality, wanting to fight that really. It's yes, we can't just play cricket. Yes, we can play football as well. Yeah. And these guys, they had such determination. And I got engrossed in all of this as well. You know, I mean, I was fortunate. I was college, and then I went to university. So relatively, I had a really comfortable life compared to these guys. But they inspired me, because I thought, look at these, you know, the determination, the training they put in and so forth, and the target was really to say that, you know, we want to win this championship. It's a 125-year-old trophy that no other, apart from obviously English team has won. We want to win that no matter what happens. Then we want to show this.
So what was the name of the league or trophy? Or?
It was
Nelson Amateur League.
Nelson Amateur League. Okay, I mean, we
Saturday,
went. Yeah, Saturday. I mean, after that we went
into... there were 4 divisions with about 20 teams in each division.
We probably started off at the bottom division.
We did.
Won our way. Eventually, I mean, we did win the first division championship. And then we went on to senior leagues and so forth. And in addition to that, we used to play in various tournaments, especially used to have these Bhagat Singh Memorial Tournament in Bradford and Sheffield. I remember we won this 5-a-side
Some
tournament.
Fighting on the pitch, and more fighting after the match.
Yeah, we'll expand on that later. That's when people like Mash started.
Well, I was younger then, so I could stand back and watch rather than get involved.
Yeah. But so, as I said, luckily for me, forgive me, Mash, but I see it as the golden period of, Paak United. Yes, because not only did we win the championship eventually, we organised 2 national tournaments in Nelson. Corn, actually, we held them. We invited teams from London, Yorkshire, and over 2 days, these tournaments were held. I mean, it's revolutionary, really, what Paak United did. I'm talking about 1982-83. We hosted national tournaments. We won both times, actually, right? And then we organized, raise funds, sponsored walk, 20-mile sponsored walk. Over £900 we raised once. That was, I think,
a lot of money at them.
So what would you say that is now? £900 that you raised at that time.
Well, just tell you, the wage was £5.
Right.
So I used to work £5 and then gradually got to £7. And then when I was talking about tacklers, for example, there, my wage was in night shift in 1971 beyond was £21. What we wanted to do is to say whatever skill level we had, but we wanted to be fit. And Arif, Allah bless him, Allah give him Jannah. Every day I used to run, but occasionally I used to go with Arif. Alhamdulillah, rain or shine, snow or whatever, I hardly missed running, but I used to come night shift, 6 o'clock, heat. It's unusual regime I had. I used to go run after and then come do the press up and then I used to go to bed. So what you're saying, there was a motivation.
Definitely, yeah.
Real motivation to do that.
No, so I think it's really interesting you're saying that because it gives you an idea that the racism that you experienced drove you into a direction where you thought, well, I'm not going to be beaten down by this, so I am gonna go into an area where you think that I can't make it. So then we go into formative years where Uncle Saj is saying you guys were quite successful.
Well, if I can just add to that, it's very important. That was the initial motivation. Then another major motivation drove us. As we became successful, we thought there's no Pakistani professional footballer. There were one or two black players that had come onto the scene, and that was such a thing, and it still is, unfortunately, to this day.
Yeah.
And then at that time, there were a few of us who were on the verge of professional football. I mean, I had trials with Blackburn. I played semi-professional for Lancaster City for a while. Ejaz Bhatti, he was Burnley, I think, trials. Sigurd had links with Halifax. So, it was sort of simmering and so forth. And I think that's when we also had the idea of quite a revolutionary step. We'll have a junior team.
Right.
So the next generation, we can train them and so forth. And MASH has been very patient, very quiet. And this is where people like MASH started coming onto the scene and so forth. And I think we need to bring MASH in to say, firstly, because he can link it, what he saw when we were playing and so forth from the outside, and what it meant to him to start playing for Paak United, and so he can bring a different perspective onto things. Please.
Fantastic. Well, like you mentioned before, those were the golden era.
Okay.
What happened in the 80s?
Yes.
When we won I think Old House, there must have been about 5,000 people there.
Yeah,
game.
That final game. Yeah.
And I was fortunate to be on sub.
Oh, were you sub
for
that
day? Championship game?
Yeah.
And I've got some photos at home where you're picking the trophy up and I'm with the cheesy with the kit on. For me, them day I was still at school.
Yeah.
But for me to wear the Paak United shirt, and be with you heroes, you were actually my heroes.
Thank you.
And everything I am today, everything I look up to, everything, it's all because of the resilience and the determination and the goodness of you guys, basically.
Very kind of you, Mash.
I was saying before how Nelson gets bad press now from our own people. Where they say, oh, Nelson, there's nothing that's good in Nelson, but there's a lot of good in Nelson. And I think the bad overshadows it. But yeah, with the under-13s, I think we started under 13s.
Under 11s.
Under 11s, sorry.
Nasser, Chunky Chicken.
Absolutely. They were the younger generation to us. We started at 13. They started at 11.
A bit later, yeah.
So the under 13s, Khalid put it, and I remember clear as day, edge end. It used to be that running down pitch, and he'd put out a thing for summer, and he said, trials for Paak United, and I remember Ashi.
Yeah.
Mohammed Rashad, who works for the
youth work.
Shock, who now runs something. Mohammed Shokat.
Yeah.
Malik.
Yeah.
Ayub Yaqub Malik.
Oh yeah.
Malik brothers.
Yeah.
Naveed, who is Jap's younger brother.
Yeah.
Zaf, we call him Zaf LA.
Oh yeah.
But it's Zafar.
Zafar.
He used to go to Primer.
Yeah.
He was one of the ones. Bubbly and Saki.
Yeah.
Who their dad used to work for
Community Relations.
REC Community Relations. Yeah. There was a guy, Seti, the guy who used to work for
Seti
his son Raj,
Oh yeah.
Raj, he used to play for us.
Sanjeev Sethi.
Of course.
Yeah. Son.
And I think I've mentioned most of the Mermon people.
Yeah.
These guys all came on the scene together, and it was so fortunate because what had happened is we were in and around watching Paak for all those years. The home pitch used to be on Benthead. And we used to have this cry every Saturday, United Magic.
Yeah.
United Magic.
You were one of the leaders of
and
that.
I think that was something that used to ring around
Yeah.
Benthead every Saturday.
Paak United
And
Magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So everybody used to go and watch them. And I think once those teams got put together, it set us up for, following everything that you guys had done, but facing not as much racism.
Yeah.
But still facing, because we were in the 80s then.
That's right.
And playing matches, it was, no matter who the English teams played, if they played each other, it was always a normal game. But whenever it was playing Paak, or Paak, as they used to call it, it was always a crunch game.
Yeah.
And I think we spent most of the time fighting. And there's still people who remember it now, because my boy Farouk, he told me the other day, he goes, he's doing some work with a food bank and things like that. And he said, oh, Dad, there was a guy called Sakib. I was talking to him, and he said, those guys left everything on the pitch. And it was true. And I think we learnt it all from you guys, how the mutual respect was there for people as a togetherness. And I never used to hear of any Pakistanis having any dues with each other. And now there seems to be these gangs who don't like these Asian gangs and that. So it's a bit of a shame. But them days we were always one.
Yeah.
And I think if you had a streak, and this was true, and I believe it to be true, because if you had something about you, by Iqbal had it, by Saj had it, Ifti, who runs the bed place down here, and also by Iqbal, who runs Furniture Direct.
Yeah.
All these guys were all Paak United. And basically, they were proper men as well. In the sense that they could tackle anything head on. And I think if you had that kind of streak, you always either went into cricket or went into football. And I think how many teams did we have? About 12 teams, cricket teams. And you were like the ultimate, as in, Iqbal was the one who gave all these people the permission in a way to get involved in cricket, And I think people like yourselves.
Even I played with cricket with him.
We used to get dragged into it just to feel.
But Mash, forgive me, there's one very important point I wanted to make. Mash touched on it. And I mean, I've been very fortunate in my life. Allah Pak, I can never thank the Lord enough. But of all the things I've had, all the achievement, one of the greatest achievements and blessings in a way is when people like Mash and others of his generation say, whenever there's an opportunity, the respect and the love they show us and the gratitude, we didn't feel that we did anything special for them, to be honest. But they feel that we showed them a way, we showed them the way, we inspired them, we did this, we did that.
Yeah.
And, all of that generation has turned out to be such positive people. They've been really successful in their own way. I mean, I'm so proud of what Mash has done and what he's continuing to do with young kids. It's absolutely fantastic. But you mentioned a few names, each of them. I mean, Saki,
of course,
he's teaching to one of the
head
schools.
Head of IT,
Pendle Vale. His brother Bubbly is in the police and he's in Leeds at the moment. Yeah, he's head of the. So, the love, the respect they show us for the way we might have inspired them. And one of the, the greatest thing anybody's ever said to me was, Jav's brother Zaf.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's always joking and he's funny. And he said, like Masha just said, Saj, you're one of my heroes, you're my hero. And I said, that's very kind of you, thank you. Sir. No, he says, you don't realize you are actually my hero. I said, I know you, and he'll hug me and kiss me or wherever and thank you for all. I said, we never did anything. And he said, Laura, let me tell you, he said, when I was at school, and they had difficult times at school, he said the English teacher asked us for homework, write a story about our heroes. And he says somebody wrote about Kevin Keegan, who was captain of England. Somebody wrote about Michael Jackson and so forth. He said, I wrote about you, Saj.
Wow.
And I mean, honestly, even now I'm welling up, but it brought tears to my eyes, and I had to realize how much impact, not just me, but that Paak United, that's what we're here for. That's what meant to these kids, you know.
Yeah, so could the argument be made that, like, I'm going to bring the discussion back to today's time later on in our chat, but could the argument be made based on what Uncle Mash is saying about some of the people and what you're saying about, you know, how successful some of these people are going on to be and the values that they might have got on the pitch, that maybe that was a really good driving force in kind of keeping the youth busy?
Yeah, definitely. Very good point. Very good point.
I think it gave us a direction, didn't it? I mean, what are you going about the cricket league?
What it was that because we saw, place in a society, because at that time when my generation and then these coming up, like you said, later on he went to university, but at that time our parents weren't thinking about these things.
Yeah.
So that's where it was that, for example, my uncle, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him Jannah, Uncle Yaqub, he died in 1990s. And he used to say, don't play football. Don't play cricket. You got brain.
Yeah.
He said, but you got brain. Start a business. And I used to always say, no, I don't want to. I'm happy working at textile. Coming home, 8-hour shift. Then I used to play football and cricket. That's for me. And he couldn't understand me. So from there, what also the cricket and football was to enable people to stay off, because at that time also the cafes and all the other things came and people were attracted to them. You know, the bingo, the machines, the coffee at the, you know, the old
Jude Street,
and all sorts of, and the people who were fathers was here, and they were trained to drinking alcohol at that time, because I was the older generation, they were younger, and I could see that. So what I was saying to them, people, because they had nowhere to go, so they used to go to cafe or other places, the younger. So I used to encourage them to say, look, let's play football, let's play cricket. So alhamdulillah, from that side, that's where my involvement with the local authority.
See, it seems like, and I want you guys to tell me I'm wrong, because this is the kind of vibe I'm getting, that in Uncle Saj and your generation, there was like a little bit of almost like a peak. And then all I remember is, obviously, I'm a lot younger than you guys. So then all I remember is like when I kind of grew up, there wasn't any emphasis. So it's almost like you've gone from one generation like don't play sport, and then another generation you guys are kind of come in and you've took up sport. And it feels like it might have dipped down again. Because
that's a great observation, actually. So the trajectory that we were on, you know, we had visions of us entering the league and becoming professional footballers. The mentality of Paak United was very much of a professional club. You know, we used to have committees regularly. We appointed a chairman, secretary. We used to take minutes of meetings.
I used to be young players representative.
That's right. We had
teams,
In fact, I was telling my son the other day, I said, you know, if somebody got sent out, we had a committee who would look to whether that was due to racism of the referee deliberately being biased. And if the committee felt it wasn't the player's fault, if it was because of racism or prejudice and so forth, the club would pay their fine. Wow. You know, so we were, you know,
there were punches thrown.
And this is where the name Davy Blizzard I mentioned, who was, you know, I'll tell you a little bit about. I must mention him. He was totally blind, by the way. He was initially head of department continuing education, Nelson Cone College. He became the first ever blind principal of a further education college. He got an OBE from the Queen for his services to education, because he came up with some really revolutionary education initiatives. One of them we were talking earlier, where I used to work, DISC, the Drop-In Skills Centre, which was the first of its kind in this country, and for which we won awards and so forth. So us amateurs rambling along, this person enters into our life. because he says, these are his words, he could identify with us because he was blind, the kind of prejudices he suffered, he saw us suffering because of our color of our skins and of our nationalities. So he came on board and he took these band of people, turned us really rogues, if you like, basically, into such professional. He would allow us to use the college facilities for training.
I remember the 12-hour football. Was it the 24-hour
24-hour football we did.
At Christmas.
Yeah.
At Nelson and Corn College, and we used to play round the clock.
Yeah.
And that was all to raise money for the.
And also because he said over Christmas you lot don't have anything to do, so you can play football and so on. But some of the things that he said, look, Park United is having a band because we were all involved with fights and we were being disciplined by the community. You need to do something for the community, and we took some young English disabled people to Manchester Theatre. Yeah. We paid for it, and that was a good marketing PR exercise.
Gesture, wasn't it, really?
Good gesture.
Getting us into the community. Yeah.
He helped us organise trips to the Lake District, Houses of Commons. Me and our late RF, just the two of us. We took 12 youngsters from the age of 11 to 13, or maybe 14 or 15 perhaps. Yeah. On the train, set off 6 o'clock in the morning, went to the Houses of Commons. We went to see the ambassador of Pakistan at his embassy, and we came away with £300 from it as donation to the club. And he's telling his workers off, bring some more biscuit for the children. All these kids, from Nelson, Zaf and Jav and so forth.
Biscuits aren't going to last very long, are they?
There we took them to Harrods and so forth. So if you think about it, it was an amazing thing. Trip to Belgium I mentioned earlier. There's other things I might have missed off, but just look at this.
I think what you mentioned about how we were on a trajectory and we were thinking, right, okay, we've got to a certain level, we want to enter a different league, we want to have more teams, we've got a committee now, it's about trying to break into that semi-pro football.
Yeah.
If I can give you an example of a team that did that, and they were on the same, because we were a lot better than them.
We were ahead of them. Yeah.
From Bradford.
Yeah.
Every tournament, it used to be Albion against Park, and we used to beat them every time.
Yeah.
And they used to have black lads playing for them as well. They weren't all Sikhs, they had black lads as well. Now, if you look at where they are now, they've actually got numerous teams. They're doing really well in the leagues. They're up to semi-pro level. They get involved in all sorts of different things apart from sport, but mainly they've made it. Whereas in Nelson, it's a really sad state of affairs, because what happened then is once we got to a certain level, and I think the players who had that resilience, who had that passion, who had that whole ethos of, we are proud people, we want to represent Nelson. Because in my generation, you had lads, all of the lads who used to live in Nelson, and I mean 99.9% were either involved in football or cricket. We didn't have anybody involved in anything else. You had to be involved in something. And that wasn't because they were forced into it. It was because that was the sign of the times. That was what was happening at that time. So I think it was when the older ones went to a stage where they all started getting into volleyball. And I think they started tearing off. And obviously with the age, they weren't playing as much. And I think that's when Park had that transition.
I think you're right, Mash, but my observation on it, you look back and reflect and, where did it go wrong? It didn't go wrong, but
no, it didn't.
What happened, as I described that trajectory, I think Brother Khalid was, he devoted so much time and energy, his life was devoted to Park United, from taking the kits and organising the matches, managing, coaching and training sessions. There was a family issue and he had to go to Pakistan. Okay, I took over as manager when he went actually. David left because he was appointed principal of Lancaster Morecambe College. So another main, from the management side, the organisation side, two very senior people, and then I got married very late, and I left as well. I moved to Lancaster, so Tariq took over and so forth. But you saw Alex Ferguson, who'd been there such a long time, when he left, what happened and so forth. This was a relatively youngish club, who'd, if you like, punched well beyond its weight, and I think it was what you described, Mash, the players, the resilience, the determination and focus and all that and so forth. But behind it, there was a very organized management structure which was giving it support. And that, unfortunately, almost suddenly fell away. And in a way, it's never really recovered until people like Mash.
I think with that season, I think we went out of the league for one season, did Paak. Went out of the league. I think Tariq was managing it. We went out of the league for a season, and the season after, it was myself and Nashi and Teddy, and it was Ayub, Yaqub, Zaf, Jab. It was all that generation that took up the mantle, and then we started on our journey.
Yes.
Was that you as a player still, or
as a player manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we took it on. I think it was the late 80s, and I think we took it on, and we ended up
player, manager, physio, muscle.
I think all the guys that have had that education through the football, and you can see the way they were on the pitch is how they are in real life. You were very much reading the game and very, very precise and everything, and that's how you are in life. And you were a battler off the field and a battler on the field. And I think it just shows the personalities of people. And with our generation, when we started, I think it was the old guys had all gone their separate ways. And I think it was just a bunch of lads who were 19, 20, 21. And I think we set out on this journey, and we ended up winning the same league, and we did the triple. We won both cups.
More than us.
Both cups and the league.
Yeah, you did.
And I think they made us play on a Wednesday, Thursday and a Saturday.
Wow.
And that was the 3 semi-finals and the final. So they tried to fix everything in a way that we would actually, come a cropper. But like you said, Allah Pak has it written, and we overcame all that. Yeah. And I think, Nas, who's Chunky Chicken Nas, I have never seen, apart from Sarge, he's probably the best footballer I have ever come across at this sort of level. Yeah. And he didn't make it, and he had some injury problems as well. And Sarge obviously did make it, and with that injury, I remember being on sub that day. We were playing at Haslington, Stacksteads.
Yeah.
And you were actually doing them all. There wasn't one guy on that pitch, and he was 6.5 foot farmer boys trying everything they could, and it was muddy pitch and it was raining, and you were megging them in. And I think it was at a corner, and we didn't really see what happened, and the ball came over, and all of a sudden Sarge has gone down, and Arif has gone running on, and everybody's gone running on in. And you got up and you were a bit dazed, and you were like, oh, I'm all right. But that was your thing. It was, I'm all right. And I think that was really heartbreaking for me, because they couldn't compete, and the only way they could compete was to do the dirty stuff. I think you ended up breaking your skull. Was in hospital, that far away from death, and that is on a football pitch. And how can you justify that in sport? But this is the treatment that we took, and it was just the treatment on the pitch, but it was also the fines and going in front of committees and fighting your corner, and it was never seen to be fair. And I think a lot of the time we spent, I mean, Tariq, who lives on Rupert Street, he used to say, please play football today, because he's a calm sort of guy. And we used to say, okay, but then something used to happen in a game that used to
but
drive
it's interesting,
over the edge.
actually, those two polar, Brother Iqbal, you're saying, this is my home and I love my home, Nelson. And we do too. We're grateful. We appreciate how good this country's been for us. But at the same time, you have to remember and reconcile what Mash is describing. We were made to feel, still are made to feel like, I mean, we're lucky, we're fortunate, we're all successful in our own way. And I think this is the message for people who might be listening, young people especially listening. If you want to fight this racism, if you want to fight prejudice and so forth, try and be as successful as you can. Right? Absolutely. Get a good education, not necessarily university, get to good jobs where you have power, you have influence. Where they will listen to you.
They've no choice but to listen to you.
This is what you did. This is what I've been able to do. One of the things, if I can mention it, is not related to Park United, but in a way, so much, in fact, almost everything I feel, my dad blessed them. Sajjad, tum jinna Kabul se na unna padya nahi. You could have done more. You didn't study as well. And honestly, even now, I think, never mind what I did at university and all that, whatever I've learnt in life and gained is as a result of Park United.
Definitely.
Honestly, I have.
Definitely.
You know, the friendships I've made,
Absolutely.
the networks. I was quite a shy kid. Honestly, 18, I was the confidence it gave me, and so all these kind of things, gave me a platform. So I wanted to mention that, I was elected the first ever president and chairman of the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, in its 130 year history. I mentioned that because people are obviously proud of it.
Well, people need to know these kind of things.
These kind of things. And the reason, this addressing to the younger people might be listening, you go in there, there's that history. I was sat there, Mash, and even now I go, and these people, some of them multi-millionaires, because it's a business organization. Yeah. And you say, you never saw yourself as a businessman. Yeah. I certainly never saw myself as a businessman. I never saw myself as a lecturer and so forth. I was always saw as a footballer. Even people could refer to me, Saj, keda Saj, bade Saj footballer. So that's my identity kind of thing. But, I sit in there and I look at these people, they're running these massive companies and so forth. But they saw in me whatever qualities to make me their chairman and their president, And in fact, question.
I think that's one of the things that you are where you are, is because you are so humble. Yeah. Great people don't actually give themselves that self-importance and think, oh, taku man, I'm this, that, and the other. I'm just big time. And I think you're the same, and you're the same, and it's because of these qualities that you are where you are, and people give you that respect. We give you that respect because of the person that you are.
Thank you.
Not only because you achieved all that in football, but because of the person that you are. And at the end of the day, there is certain people you meet, and you might not have seen them for a month, a year, or whatever. But when you see them, it's as if you only saw them yesterday.
Yeah, that's true.
And there is those, you will know those people in your own heads, So I think it's, it's been a family. We have this group, WhatsApp group, and it's Park United, the brotherhood.
Yeah.
And I think lads from Halifax are on it. And we've had English lads playing for us.
Yeah.
It's not that we've always been an Asian team. And the year that we won the triple, I think me and Nasser got into the area team. When they do a big match against another league, we got into that. And it was other teams, Pendle Forest, Barnoldswick, other teams were asking us and saying, will you sign on for us next year? And people were actually coming to us. And we were at that age where you'd done all the hard work and we'd come in and we were ladly. Because you worked with the mills like my brother, he came at 13, he worked in the mills. And we were the ladly, we used to have to sit at home and do it, nothing, basically. And I think all we then did was have the floppy hair and the, all that kind of stuff and really enjoy ourselves as teenagers.
Yeah.
And I think what that gave us was enough time to learn football and learn this and learn that. And I think we became good footballers. I think our team was a very good footballing team. Whereas we didn't have the resilience and the crunching stuff that you guys had. But I think we were more skillful because I think we'd had more time in being trained. And obviously with you starting a team at 11 and Park starting a team at 13, I think all these guys had come through. And I think it came to fruition when we came and took over.
I mean, at one point, I just mentioned we had 3 teams. We had A team, a B team, and what we refer to as a C team. A team was playing on Saturday afternoons. B team was playing Sunday mornings. And the kids, the C team, used to play Saturday mornings. I mean, football was such a... Park United was such a major part of our lives that it all revolved around that. Me and Arif, my Saturday morning, we used to take the kids to play football, wherever their games were. And then in the afternoon, I used to play. Friday evening, we'd have the training down at college. Yes. And then Saturday evening, we'd have meetings.
And Sunday morning, we had a training.
Sunday morning, we'd have football. B team had matches as well, training. Yeah. But, it was that camaraderie. It was
whatever the weather, whether it was snowing, whether it was... Training was never off.
No. Well, even when
lads phone, what is the game on?
Yeah.
There, it wasn't anything on or off. It was like, you need to be there at this time. You're there at that time. And if they say the game's off, you come home.
And when the matches got abandoned because of dire weather conditions, well, we'd go and do our training.
We
didn't
But you know what they do now?
Yeah.
You know what they do now
Yeah.
after trainings? And if the game's off, they're in UKs. Of course, but it was running up and down our plats. And I think what you said about being fitter than the guys you're competing against, I think that is, in my team now, they're getting there. The mentality is starting to, because I'm trying to instill that whole Park United thing, and I brought the tops, the original Park United tops.
Yeah.
But it's about instilling that, about having pride, about being fitter.
Yeah.
Because all I say to them is 11 against 11. If you're playing centre midfield, the other guy's playing centre midfield. If you can do a better job than him, because of being fitter and better, in every position, that's all you're looking for.
I said to my sons, I said, about football skills, and I said, I made damn sure the manager doesn't drop me because I'm the fittest or nearly the fittest in the team. I said, that was in my control. If the manager has to drop, and I don't want to be a situation where he drops me because I'm not fit. Skill levels I have, whatever I have, but one thing is in my control.
You guys are the epitome of what the Asian community or what Islam is all about, because you touch so many people's lives in so many ways that are positive. And you stand up for your race, and you stand up for your people, and you stand up for what's right, and you will give people good advice. We used to be scared. Because that was the kind of, because you knew Saj would say, he wouldn't say anything to you, he would just say, yeah, I didn't expect that from you. And that would be such a bad thing for me to take. Saj saying to me, Yara, what you doing? I didn't expect that from you. And he would be disappointed in me. And I think it's more about that. And I think you had that kind of influence on your community. And, I think it's a positive thing, and I'm hoping that these positives will come back into our community. And I think, having these kind of programs. Look at you two guys, mashallah, doing really well. And this is fantastic what you're doing. And we have so much of this going on. So many things that are so positive within our young men and women in Nelson.
We need to
and it's never brought to the surface. It's always the negatives that we're always talking about. It's the negatives of, Flana Kedi Gadi Chalana Pya, this, that, the other, and they've made it in that way. They've done it on the... But there's so many people who are doing so well in other ways as well. And I think we need to highlight all that kind of stuff. And inshallah, the Paak story will continue. I mean, it started in... I wore my top just for the occasion. It went into the league, Sarge, in 1965, I think it was. Or was it? No. 1968.
68, yeah.
And we had the anniversary, and that was the time we did the dinner.
That's
when we got you on stage, and you did, and you actually went to the dinner. And those are the things that we're hoping to do every year. And it's not because they're just football dinners. It's about, stuff.
There's so many memories, so many things. I'm suspecting we're beginning to run out of time and so forth. One thing we must mention, which is on the horizon, and Mash has really engineered this. There is actually a professional filmmaker who's in the process of making a film about Park United. Park United, the movie. It's not a documentary.
This is Hollywood.
The
guy made Shaun the Sheep.
Serious?
It's
called Paul Cooley. He's just won an award as well, actually. Yes. And just to very quickly mention, I mean, as I said, Mash really was daydreaming one day at work, and he got talking to this guy who was friends with this filmmaker, and he told him about the Park United, how these immigrants came to this country, the problems they had, how successful they became, and so on. Anyway, we've gone to advanced stages. We've had several meetings with them. There's actually got funding for a guy to write the script, who's writing this as we speak and so forth. So that's one thing development. Mash will tell you more about that because he's more closely involved in it. But one of the questions that always arises, and I always get asked, why was it difficult? Why is there no Asian footballers? Why did you guys not make it and so forth? And I'd like to relate a story to you, which gives you a kind of insight of the difficulties my generation had, and maybe current generations still have. Because, culturally and religious-wise, we are different. And you mentioned representing the town team and so forth. And I remember when I got elected, and it was a big thing for somebody of our generation to. Actually, it was to represent the league. Okay, so, the league and so forth. And we played away somewhere, quite far we had to go. Really wet, miserable day. We got absolutely slaughtered, we were absolutely rubbish. I hardly got a kick. It was the first time representing. And I think we were losing 6, 7, 8-0 or something. It was complete humiliation, And would you believe it? Last minute we got a penalty. And the captain, he said to me, Saj, you take it. And I remember thinking, is he trying to set me up here? Because we're getting hammered anyway. And if this Pakistani guy gets a penalty, if I miss it, double basting, we had a chance for a consolation and he messed it up. And I mean, it's with me still now, even thinking, I've got to score this, the pressure. Luckily I did, but that's not what I want to tell the story about. And I remember after the game, bodies covered in mud and so forth. And this is the thing, English people, they have these communal showers and so forth. And I remember, oh God, this is a difficult moment for me because they're all there in the changing room naked. What do I do? I'm not getting naked here. And if I wear my shorts, perhaps I'll look even worse. I'm going to stand out there. So I decided to leave it. When I get home, I'll have a shower then. And then I remember on the court journey, you're wet, you're hungry and thirsty. And the coach stopped off somewhere near a pub because they all like to go and have a drink. And I thought, oh God, what do I do now? Come on, Sarge, you'll get your drink. Man, no. And in those days, I mean, to be honest, I didn't even know you could get orange juice in a pub or whatever. Just the thought of going into the pub, it was frightening. And so I remember, and I'm sat there in the coach all alone, wet, hungry, thirsty, and lonely. And that gives you an insight of how difficult it was for our generation to remain true to your religion and culture and people and not become what our parents feared we might become, and
Definitely.
And that sort of doesn't bode well for team spirit and so forth, because I felt like an outsider
but
again.
People who recognise Paak for the spirit actually ended up recognising us for the men that we were.
I think the long term,
Norman
Jones, yeah.
He was the head of the suicide squad at Burnley.
Yeah.
And he was actually our goalkeeper.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And he used to be more for Paak than anybody I've known. He was Paak through and through. But he was head of the suicide squad.
He was, yeah.
And they were
whatever suicide club he was, but he wasn't fighting because Bradford, we had a problem, and he was in the changing room or somewhere.
He was a black.
I said to him, he was
a black belt in karate, and in fact, after he left Paak United, I didn't see him for 20 years. And one day he turned up to our showroom. And, he was always bumping. Hey, Snaj, how's it going? So I said, where have you been?
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. And he'd gone to America, and he told me he was in a bar and he saw this woman being abused, and he actually punched somebody, and he ended up killing this guy, and he was in prison for so many years.
Wow.
That's how strong he was.
But he didn't help us out.
I'm like that. So what you just said, reminded me. I played cricket, but then I had urge, or some people said to me, play for Nelson. So I went to the training and I got selected as second. So got a duck. First ball, I opened the ball, batting, got a duck. Second game, Burnley. I got a 50. So they have a tradition of collecting funds, at the whoever makes 50. So we got to the changing room, end of match, and they said, buy drinks. I said, nobody's having a drink. Orange juice. I said, it's not coming out of my collection. If you have an orange juice, have an orange juice. Otherwise, no drink. So that's how I am. Like Saj said, he was like that. They showered like this. I said,
wasn't that giving them the indication that these guys stick to their principles? They will not change for anything. This is their principle.
He's a very diplomatic and humble, but there's two personalities.
Yeah.
What he was, I said, like the shower, they said. I said, I'll have a shower when you boogers come out.
Yeah.
So I said, I said, I'll have a shower when you come out. So I said, I'm not having a shower. And when Paak United, when we were Paak, with the football team, I always have my shorts on.
We all, my generation, we all went in the showers. And I think it was more accepted in the way that whatever we did, because the best thing was whenever we used to go and play, it was like, oh, you're playing Paak today. And when Paul used to turn up, and even if we used to have some of our main players missing, it was the name that used to carry us, because they used to say, "Oi, watch them," because it was all about how good we always were, that they were still had this image of the Paak United in their mind. And I think half of the games we used to do well in just because of carrying the name.
I think again that is all. This is a very important point for the younger generation listening. Again, you stick to your principles and you gain respect, and this is how you make progress. You know, everybody then, and this is one of the great things about this country, eventually you will knock on doors and you will break those boundaries down. If I can tell another little story, it's not related to football, but it's again one of my greatest achievements, I feel, in life. When I was in Lancaster, my youngest, my daughter, who's now made me a granddad, by the way, you know, she was leaving junior school to go to senior school. And right at the door, our doorstep was a Catholic school, very good Catholic school. But the school they gave her, I think it would have been an hour journey. They would have had to change 2 buses for her to get to that, because that school at that time, the policy, you know, 25 years ago, I think it was, the policy was only Catholics would go. And I decided to appeal, you know. Natasha, she was only 11 years old, and 2 buses in Lancaster, you know, hardly any of our community and so forth. And I appealed and I presented my arguments for why, and I said, look, in this day and age, generation, at that point of time, one of the popes had even visited a mosque somewhere. I gave that example. I gave the example of me and my family. I said, look, I've come to Lancaster. I'm the only Asian in the college. I'm teaching English kids. Contribution my family's made, and you know, we're forward looking, you know, progressive kind of family. So I've made all these kind of arguments. I've written them down and so forth. To be honest, I didn't think I had a chance for her to get it, because I understood that was the policy. To my surprise and amazement, they decided to make exception and let her in. I felt so proud. I still feel proud to this day. But what came after is the real achievement. Natasha, to her credit, after 1 year, the headmaster called me and she said, your daughter has been such a credit to you and your family and your religion. The kids around her and the school teachers have learned so much about your religion, your culture and so forth. It's been taken to the governors and they've decided to reverse that policy, and in future they will allow non-Catholics and so forth.
Wow.
So from that day onward, see, it's a little tiny thing, but if all of us can do these tiny things, this is how we can go forward in a positive way.
I mean, I heard something, and it was a mosque I went, and this guy was saying something, and he said, you know, kids, they're not a gift. They're not a gift from Allah. They're an amanat. And that amanat is, Allah Paak's going to say to you, I gave you an amanat. What did you do with it? And your kids are a credit to you. I mean, going on about Danny, you know, one of my most favourite kids on the academy at Burnley, by the way. So he nearly made pro. And then Farouk, he was at Burnley, and Zoe were at Blackburn. So there has been kids who have gone up to that sort of level. But with them, it's all about how you brought them up. And when people ask them, who's your dad, they get more respect. And with you as well, Allah. And that's how it is. It's how, you know, it's because they always say, how come their kids turn out to be the wrong way? And I think you guys are such powerful personalities that, you know, you brought your kids up. I know people who are really lovely people, but their kids have gone totally off the track. But you guys have really given you the ability to be able to bring them up. That, you know, they demand respect from people.
Yeah. I tell you what, being father is hard work.
Oh yes.
Being grandfather is even harder.
No, it's easier because when they cry, you give them back.
Now when they're 22. Now when they're 22.
I had this other story I must tell you. So
Please, yeah.
Yeah. We're on Street, and one of my great memories of football is on Street, and that's why I ended up down there, because thinking that's where he was, because I thought he was, but it's John. I was a cocky 16-year-old just gone to college, and Man United, love of my life, got to the FA Cup final, and they were playing Southampton, second division. We were in the first division. There's no Premier League in those days. And I remember going around everywhere. We're going to hammer them. 6-1, we're going to hammer them. 6-1. You know, that was my 6-1. And many of us didn't have a TV at home. And those that were lucky who did, it was black and white TV. And this senior brother who was working, we were poor students. And you could hire for the weekend a colour TV. For a special occasion, Brother Iqbal forked out of his £21 or whatever it was. he hired for the weekend.
Do you not get one of them videos as well that used to go crack all them?
Maybe that one. So we could watch the FA Cup final with fellow United supporters. You know, so we all, I don't know, 20 of us, whatever, gathered to watch United hammer Southampton, hopefully 6-1 as my prediction. We couldn't believe it. We lost 1-0. Complete humiliation. We, you know, and Paak Iqbal being, you know, the stubborn ziddi guy, said, "Eh, television jana nahi, es rave da jinna chikar jehda na United win nahi karone." So luckily for us, we came back the following year in the FA Cup final. I don't think I watched it at your house. I watched it somewhere else. And the team that they beat, and they might have stopped them from doing the treble, perhaps, in my memory might. Anyway, the team they beat in the following year in the FA Cup final was actually Liverpool, Mike.
Oh.
Right? Okay.
I remember crying very much at that because me and my brother fell out at home.
So we cried the previous year, you cried the following year.
Because my brother's a Man United fan.
You told this story to Imran, I think.
Yeah, I told you.
Imran came home,
yeah,
and he said, "Dad, did you do this?" I said, "Who told you?" He said, Sarge told me. So he said, "You did that," and he said, "You know, it's that part of life."
I wish you were still involved in football, yeah. Honest to God, Lala, I still wish. Because we need that drive and that determination and everything. And it's about representing, isn't it? You're representing your community. And I think going back to the time you represented, Park represented the Nelson town this big in Lancashire, represented them in Antwerp. In Belgium.
Wow.
Raising all the money, but doing 12-hour football, doing these cards. You remember those cards?
Raffles. Or scratch cards as well. Yeah.
Everything. And we just spent so much time. And I think there's still some photos that exist.
We raised the money, yeah.
And we hired 2 minibuses. And we went to Europe.
We drove all the way.
I got to go because I was one of the younger ones. I got to go,
yeah,
which was really good for me because there was me and Bird, Shoaib,
yeah,
and Sonf, I think it went as well. We were the younger ones, and I think because you had some spare seats, so they thought, right, let's take this lot along as well. And then when you had the big party after you got to the semis, but I'll let you fill us in on that because that I want to see it from your point.
I suppose that you could consider that as one of the pinnacle moments. You know, little old Nelson being represented in a tournament in Belgium, Antwerp. And, you know, some of the teams there were professional. You know, sometimes I look, last year, Europa League, Den Haag, they're from Holland. We played them in the semi-final. Just to show how far back, you know how captain exchanged pennants and so forth.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't even have a pennant because we'd only amateur club. We'd had these special ties made, Park United ties, and we came up with the crescent, Paak crescent, white crescent, and we had a red rose in the middle instead of the star, showing our integration, if you like. So I actually gave them Thai every time I went up because we didn't have
and
a
it was this 5-a-side or 7-a-side?
It was 7-a-side. 7-a-side. So we drove all the way. We stayed in the hotel. It was New Year's Eve.
I think I remember we got onto the ferry, and some of the lads had never been on a ferry before.
That's right.
And what they did, they went to the restaurant, they had loads of food, and then they spent all the time chucking over, throwing up all the way to Belgium.
It was even
and then
worse
we stopped on the motorway, and everybody were hungry, and we stopped at this roadside cafe thing. And we didn't know what to order. And then somebody found out that Fritz are chips. And I think egg. So everybody had like egg and chips. So there were like 25 egg and chips coming up.
Mash was obviously on a holiday there. I only remember the football bit. He remembers all this food.
Because I was still, I think I just left school. So for me, it was like a Christmas away. It was over Christmas.
It was Christmas, New Year's.
Yeah, it was over Christmas.
You know, again, the back end, I was work and I told them I needed time off, and obviously it would be without pay and they won't give me time off. I had to work an extra day without pay in order to get the days off. You know, that's how things were. But anyway, I was determined to go. So we got there New Year's Eve. They had a special party, you know, like they do New Year's Eve party. Again, most of the Nelson lads at that time, including myself, had never seen a New Year's Eve party.
I think we picked the phrase of Wunderbar.
Wunderbar. So the drinking that goes on, the celebration. So that was, you know, breaking down boundaries.
What they did, they took us upstairs, the 4 or 5 of us, locked us in our room. Little did they know that we got out and we were actually downstairs again watching what was going on.
Because the next day were games and we say, look, that's it, you're banned now, you got to stay in bed. And so these lot escaped and they were doing. So, but the professionalism came in. Our manager, Khalid, he talked to the organisers, say, look, you know, can we just see where the games are tomorrow? Can we have a bit of a train? I mean, this is how forward-thinking professional. Nobody else got access to the playing facility. We got to have a kickabout as well because we want to see the surface we're playing, the dimensions and so forth. Anyway, next day we were unbeaten. In order to get to the final, we had to, our goal difference was exactly the same. The only thing we lost out on was that we'd conceded one more goal. Yeah. We lost out on not getting to the final. Final game, I think we had to win 7-0 or something. Yeah. And we won 7-1, I think. We conceded, there was one misunderstanding goal. But, you know, it was fantastic. What an achievement, you know, breaking down barriers, going to a foreign country, meeting all these people from professional clubs, you know, the respect we earned. And we did Nelson proud. We didn't do just the Pakistani community. And this is the thing about remembering who we are and it's our town. I always say to the kids, I always said to them, like I said, when you play for United, or even when you go to university or wherever you go in the world, you're representing your parents, your family. You're representing your Pakistani community. You're representing your religion. You're representing Nelson, you know, when you go. So remember that, you know, when you do good things, people remember those good things. If you do bad things, they remember the bad things.
I'm gonna jump in at this point. We've gone quite long so far. So we're about an hour and 45 in.
Oh God!
But I've had an idea. Yeah. Because I think because a lot of the stuff that I want to ask, because I had about 18 questions on, and I think I've only hit about 6 so far. But I think what we can do, and it makes a lot of sense because there's each a generation, isn't there? So I'd like, if you guys are up for it, and this is putting you on the spot now because you can't say no now. Right. But inshallah, there'll be future episodes individually where we can get each stage in full detail out. Because otherwise, because some of the stuff I want to ask is going to be easily an extra hour and a bit. But one thing I will ask us, just to round it off then, can I ask each of you just to maybe a short 1-minute word directly to the viewers? A lot of my viewers are mainly the younger guys, and the majority are male. I know that because I look at the stats. So I just ask if you can just give me just a 1-minute word that you have, whether it's positive or just encouragement or anything along those lines. Any message you want to get across, just lay it out. So Uncle Mashouk, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say, you know, for what I've seen Paak do over the years, and it's a thing called, I think winners. It's about being winners, and it's not, on the football field or in your personal life or whatever. I think it's all about. I had this quote in my head and I can't remember. It's winners being. It's not being a winner. It's not about not losing, but it's about not giving up.
Yeah, very good.
And I think that's the real thing. And we've been around for 50 years, this football team now. And when we pass it on to the next generation, there will always be somebody there to pick it up, because these guys were there to start it. These guys were there in its heyday, and then we've come along and ran it, and then it went to other hands. Then I've come back and start taking it over again, and that's been purely because of the love of Paak United. I could have just not got involved, but it's just keeping that whole thing going. But it's about, you should never give up.
No, mashallah. Uncle Saj?
Yeah, I mean, my message to everybody always has been 3 very important things I feel have benefited me. Firstly, education. Study as much as you can, make as much progress you can. Very, very important. Secondly, sport is such a fantastic thing to build your confidence, keep you healthy, make friendships, develop networks and so forth. Get involved in sport, team sport. The third thing is so important, and a lot of the English people do it. Our generation has done it. More of us need to do it. Get involved in voluntary community work. You give up your own time, but you get far, far more from it. I'm sure Brother Iqbal will enforce that. So those, please try and get into those things.
Uncle?
There's a 4 question, self-question. Who am I? Why am I here? Where I'm going to go? So if a person, who am I? Where I've come from? Why I'm here? Where I'm going to go? Can be applied in all of us daily lives and where we're living. So whether you want to apply to your education, you want to apply to your family life, you want to apply to your career, these are fundamental things which people don't study. And I certainly didn't study at my early age. Who am I? Is really, really important to understand. And I am strong in my roots. I know who am I. Then you go beyond that. Alhamdulillah, why am I here? That's life in general, but also I am planted in England. Where I'm going to go. So that's where you need to live. We are all going to be successful. We are successful, but then we are going to pass away from this world. So what's it going to be like?
About leaving a legacy, isn't it?
No, but you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you. And He's in from the world of spirit. You have brought here. You're given a body. Body is not you. The body gets ill. Then the spirit is the real you. Then you're here. This body does what you want it to do. This hand, shake it. He only does it because the Ruh wants it to be done. So that's understanding that. Then where am I going to go? I'm going to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in education, in work, you remember that, and you'll offend less people because you know you are accountable. You do business, you do everything, you're accountable. Then there is a Jannah. So all these can be applied whatever lifestyle you have in a marriage life and etc. So what are the rights of other people and what's the rights of yours? And alhamdulillah. But I have nothing admiration for young people in this country, and particularly Muslim brothers and sisters. They have a golden opportunity. Take the opportunity. Take both opportunities. But alhamdulillah, you have a beautiful religion. Understand it and practice it. Don't take it after what people have said about us. Alhamdulillah, there's a Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the legacy is there. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. And I just want to take this opportunity just to say thank you. It's really appreciated that
thank you.
That you're willing to come down and talk, because and I'm sure the viewers will be listening in and taking plenty of notes. And the good thing about this format is because it's not radio, you can just go back and go over previous points as well. So, so inshallah, we'll get you guys on again soon.
Okay,
just separate, and then we'll go more specific. And that's pretty much it. Also, as usual, thanks to people listening and tuning in.
Thank you.
Just please subscribe. Stick to the YouTube channel. Just help me grow it, and that's pretty much all. So thanks up. Goodbye.